The rain, a relentless silver curtain, blurred the city lights as Nathan Caldwell's sleek black Mercedes glided silently through the deserted streets. His hands, usually steady, gripped the steering wheel with a white-knuckled intensity that belied the car's smooth progress. 2 blocks ahead, a city bus, a lumbering beast of yellow and green, pulled away from a flickering street lamp, its tail lights a diminishing red glow. Carol was on that bus, his son's nanny. And Nathan, a man who built empires on calculated risks and unwavering control, was following her, a cold knot of dread tightening in his stomach. Just hours earlier, the grand echoing silence of the Caldwell mansion had felt more suffocating than usual. He'd found himself pacing the study, the scent of old leather and his cooling scotch doing little to calm his agitation. The image of Carol's face, pale and strained under the porch light, replayed in his mind. I have personal matters to attend to. My shift ended at 7:00. Sir, I believe I am free to go. Her voice, usually soft and melodious when reading to Noah, had been clipped, almost defensive. He remembered the phone call from the night before, a hushed, desperate whisper drifting from the back terrace, just audible through the open study window. I need it soon. No, I cannot ask anyone else. I am doing everything I can. No context, no explanation, just raw, unvarnished desperation. Desperation, Nathan knew, was a dangerous catalyst. It had driven his first wife, Jennifer, to gamble away a fortune on a phantom investment, leaving him with crushing debt and a shattered trust. It had driven Amelia, his second wife, to seek solace in a world of fleeting pleasures and empty promises, abandoning him and Noah to the silent, suffocating grief of her cancer. He had built his current empire, Caldwell Industries, from the ashes of those betrayals, forging a fortress of wealth and control around his heart. He had learned that people, especially those in need, were often wolves in sheep's clothing, and he had vowed to protect Noah, his only son, from that bitter lesson. But Carol? Carol was different. 6 months ago, she had walked into their sterile, grief-stricken world like a soft, persistent spring rain. Noah, a quiet, withdrawn child since his mother's death, had slowly, miraculously, begun to bloom under her care. He laughed again, a sound Nathan hadn't heard in years. He played, not just with his toys, but with a newfound lightness in his spirit. He smiled, a genuine, wide smile that reached his eyes. Carol had brought warmth, laughter, and a sense of normalcy back to a house that had become a gilded cage of sorrow. That morning, Nathan had watched from the hallway as Noah, still in his dinosaur pajamas, tugged at Carol's hand. "Can you stay tonight, just until I fall asleep?" he'd whispered, his small voice filled with an aching hope. Carol had knelt, her smile soft and sincere, tucking his stuffed rabbit into the crook of his arm. "Not tonight, sweetheart, but I'll be back first thing in the morning. That's a promise." A promise. The word had echoed in Nathan's chest, stirring something quiet, something hopeful, something he hadn't felt in years. But then the memory of the phone call, the hushed, urgent plea for money, had resurfaced, twisting that fragile hope into a knot of suspicion. He had gone to the security panel, his fingers hovering over the polished screen. He prided himself on the impenetrable security of his home, a testament to his need for control. A few clicks, and the footage from the previous day flickered to life. Carol arriving on time, her canvas bag slung over her shoulder, her patient hands brushing Noah's unruly hair, her quiet efficiency organizing the craft drawer, reading bedtime stories on the plush couch. Nothing suspicious, nothing wrong, except for that call. She had stepped out onto the back terrace, phone pressed tight to her ear, her back to the house, unaware of the camera's unblinking eye. "I'm trying." I said I'm trying. I just need more time. Do not give up on me. He muted the clip, but the strained, anxious tone of her voice still played over and over in his head. It wasn't fear, he realized. It was pressure. Desperation. He had stood abruptly, his drink forgotten. He didn't want to be this man, the one who doubted kindness, who saw betrayal in every shadow. But if something was happening behind his back, something that could put Noah in danger. He needed to know. He pulled on his coat, grabbed his keys, and headed for the garage, the quiet hum of his Mercedes filling the oppressive silence. He pulled out slowly, headlights off, a shadow among shadows, keeping his distance as he turned down the street Carol had taken. Maybe she was just trying to survive. Maybe she had a past she was hiding. Maybe she was everything she claimed to be. And maybe, just maybe, he was about to uncover something that would change everything he thought he knew. Tonight, he would find the truth. Even if it broke the only fragile connection he had left. The bus, a diesel-fueled behemoth, rumbled through the older neighborhoods of Seattle, leaving behind the glittering glass towers and manicured lawns. Nathan, a phantom in his silent Mercedes, tracked its every turn, his grip tightening on the wheel. The streets grew narrower, the buildings older, their facades weathered and tagged with graffiti. Flickering street lamps cast long, uncertain shadows over cracked sidewalks. This was not the Seattle of his world. Finally the bus hissed to a stop. Carol disembarked, her canvas bag clutched tightly to her side, her blonde ponytail damp from the persistent drizzle. She did not look back. She crossed the street, her figure small against the backdrop of the crumbling architecture, and stepped into a faded blue building with a crooked sign. Hope Haven Community Center. Nathan parked across the street, the rain-speckled windows of his car offering a distorted view. Through the grimy glass he saw her. She was greeted warmly by a gray-haired woman with kind eyes, then ushered into a brightly lit room. The room was filled with children. Some sat on worn mats, their faces smudged, their clothes a patchwork of hand-me-downs. Others fidgeted with crayons and paper, their small hands working with intense concentration. Carol knelt among them, her voice a soft murmur lost behind the glass. From her canvas bag, the one he had suspected held secrets, she pulled out books, bright markers and paper dolls. A small girl, no older than Noah, hesitated at first, her eyes wide and wary. But then, slowly, she moved closer as Carol helped her draw a stick figure house, with bright red flowers out front. Carol smiled, a gentle, patient, real smile that transformed her tired features. A boy behind her sneezed, a wet, rattling sound. Without hesitation, Carol pulled a hand-knitted scarf from her own neck, the same scarf he had seen her working on during her lunch breaks in his mansion, and wrapped it carefully around his small throat. Nathan blinked. He watched for nearly an hour. Carol read stories aloud, her voice carrying an easy warmth. She crouched to meet children at eye level, adjusted buttons on a little boy's oversized coat, held a crying girl until her sobs subsided into quiet sniffles. She laughed when they laughed, a genuine, unrestrained sound. She moved as if this place, this crumbling, underfunded space, was her true home. He leaned back in the seat, overwhelmed, a profound sense of shame washing over him. She had not been hiding deceit. She had been hiding kindness. He looked at the box of delicate pastries on the passenger seat, a leftover from his kitchen staff, intended for Noah's breakfast. Without thinking, he scribbled a note on a napkin, "I care the children," from someone who believes in them. He placed it with the box, crossed the street, and quietly left it just inside the community center's door, retreating before anyone could see him. Back in his car, he watched through the rain-streaked window as Carol found the package. She paused, puzzled, then a slow, soft smile spread across her face. She read the note twice, her fingers tracing the words. He saw her touch her chest briefly, a gesture of quiet emotion. Nathan exhaled, a breath he hadn't realized had been holding. The next morning, Carol arrived for work 10 minutes late, her cheeks flushed, her hair damp from the walk. She held the crumpled napkin from the pastry box in her hand. "I'm very neat." "Caldwell," she said carefully, standing just inside the kitchen, her eyes searching his. "Did you leave something at Hope Haven?" He didn't turn immediately, pretending to inspect the coffee maker. "Maybe." "Why?" He faced her then, his gaze steady. "Because I was wrong about you." She blinked, her eyes widening slightly. You followed me?" He nodded once, a faint flush creeping up his neck. "I did." You thought I was stealing. Her voice was flat, devoid of accusation, but tinged with a familiar weariness. I did, he admitted, his voice low, raw, with regret. But I saw something else. You with those kids? It was beautiful. Nine. Carol looked down at the note, her fingers smoothing its creases. They loved the pastries. Thank you. Jamie. You shouldn't have to do it alone, he said, stepping closer. Let me help. She hesitated, her gaze distant. This isn't charity. I know, he replied, meeting her eyes. It's admiration. Their eyes met, and for the first time something soft, something fragile and real passed between them, like the beginning of trust. Nathan sat at his desk in the study, the afternoon sun casting long shadows across the dark wood. His laptop screen displayed a modest website, plain, functional, yet undeniably heartfelt, Hope Haven Community Center, serving Seattle's forgotten families. He scrolled through blurry photos of dedicated volunteers, bustling community dinners, and vibrant after-school programs. In the corner of one picture, Carol knelt beside a child holding a paper heart with "Believe in Yourself" scrawled in crayon. He read about their struggles, dwindling funding, donations down, a heater that had broken twice this winter. He closed the browser, leaning back in his chair, a quiet resolve settling over him. That evening he made a few discreet calls. By midnight, a shell company he often used for anonymous philanthropy had wired a substantial sum, enough to cover operating costs for months and more, to Hope Haven. He slept better than he had in weeks, the ghost of his past cynicism finally beginning to recede. The next day, he lingered longer than usual in the kitchen, feigning interest in the morning news. Carol arrived in her usual quiet way, hair tucked behind her ears, sleeves rolled up. Good morning, Mr. Caldwell, she said, setting down her canvas bag. Carol, he said, pretending to sip his coffee. How's Noah doing with his letters? She smiled, a genuine easy smile that reached her eyes. Getting better. He writes his name backwards sometimes, but he's so proud of it. Nathan chuckled. Sounds like his mother. Carol's smile faded slightly, but she nodded. He talks about her. I hope you don't mind answering questions, he said carefully, but I was wondering what made you want to work with children. Carol's hand stilled over the lunch she was packing for Noah. She took a quiet breath. I grew up in a group home. No parents, no siblings, just a rotating door of social workers and bunk beds. Her voice was soft, distant, as if recalling a faded photograph. There was one volunteer who came every week to read to us. She brought paperbacks and cookies. She only stayed a year, but I never forgot her. She was the first person who made me feel seen. Like I wasn't just a number. Nathan said nothing, afraid of interrupting the rare openness in her voice. I promised myself if I ever got out, I'd do the same for someone else. I'd be that person. No, what hard. Just then Noah ran into the kitchen, still in his socks, a crumpled drawing clutched in his hand. Miss Carol, look. I drew us in the park. Carol knelt, her face softening as she examined the scribbled stick figures. It's beautiful, Noah. You even remembered the slide. Nathan watched her tuck a strand of hair behind her ear, her attention completely devoted to his son. The softness in her voice, the gentle way she held Noah's hand. She had given his son something he had not been able to give himself. Family. That evening when Carol left for Hope Haven, Nathan placed a small wrapped box on the table by the door. Inside was a deluxe set of colorful building blocks, enough for 10 children. He added a note in clean, careful handwriting. HE for Noah and his friends, from someone who believes in play. The next morning, Carol picked up the box with gentle fingers. This wasn't here yesterday. Noah mentioned his friends didn't have many toys, Nathan said, feigning casualness, though his heart hammered against his ribs. She narrowed her eyes, then softened, a faint smile playing on her lips. Thank you. I'll make sure they get it. Nathan nodded, hiding the twist in his chest. Oh, buddy. Ah, that was what she gave him. Subtly, steadily, without asking for anything in return. And for the first time in years, Nathan wanted to give something back. Not just money, but a piece of himself. The morning light streamed softly through the tall windows of the Caldwell living room, casting golden patches across the polished floor, where Noah sat, his coloring book spread wide. Carol knelt beside him, her voice gentle as she read aloud from a picture book about a bear who built a treehouse for his friends. Nathan leaned against the doorway, watching them from a distance. There was something soothing in the cadence of Carol's voice, something grounding in the way Noah nestled close to her side. When the story ended, Carol closed the book and ruffled Noah's hair. Go wash your hands before breakfast, okay, buddy? Noah nodded and skipped off toward the bathroom. Nathan stepped forward. You're really good with him. Carol looked up, surprised, a faint blush on her cheeks. Thank you. He hesitated. Can I ask you something personal? She tensed slightly. I suppose. Last week when I followed you, he stopped suddenly, unsure how to phrase it. I saw what you were doing at the community center, but I still don't understand why keep it a secret. Carol exhaled slowly, her shoulders slumping just a fraction. Because people don't always see good intentions. They see distractions, lack of professionalism. I worried you'd think I wasn't dedicated enough to this job. I don't, Nathan said quietly, stepping further into the room. I think what you're doing is remarkable. She sat on the edge of the couch, curling her hands in her lap. There's a girl, Lily. She's 9. Lost both parents in a fire last year. She doesn't talk much. Won't meet anyone's eyes. The therapists at Hope haven't said she needs regular sessions, maybe medication, but we don't have the funds. Nathan felt a dull ache in his chest, a familiar echo of his own son's silent grief. I've been working weekends at a bookstore, Carol continued, her voice barely a whisper. Trying to cover the cost for one session a week. That's why I've left early a few times. Not because I don't care about Noah. He sat down across from her, the plush couch sinking slightly under his weight. I never should have doubted that. She smiled faintly, a sad knowing curve of her lips. I've never had much. Grew up counting coins for milk. People assume you're lazy or irresponsible if you come from nothing. I've worked so hard to build trust in this role. I didn't want to jeopardize that. Nathan's throat tightened. I understand. She glanced up, her gaze piercing. Do you? He nodded, meeting her eyes. I lost my wife 3 years ago. Cancer. Quick and cruel. After that, I stopped letting people in. Everyone wanted something. Money, access, influence. I became someone who checked security footage instead of asking questions. I was scared to trust. A ton. Carol's eyes shimmered, a silent acknowledgement of shared pain. That kind of loss I can't imagine. I think, he said, his voice low, we're both a little afraid of being hurt, of being seen. She gave a shaky laugh. You'd think helping others would make us feel braver, but it doesn't always make us feel safe. Silence settled between them, a comfortable, understanding quiet. Then, quietly, Carol said, sometimes I wonder if someone like me, with my past, can ever be truly loved. Nathan's chest twisted. You deserve more than love. You deserve safety, belief, respect. Her shoulders trembled, and she quickly wiped a tear from her cheek. You don't know how much I needed to hear that. He didn't reach for her hand. He didn't dare. But in that moment, something shifted. An understanding, a thread of fragile trust, began to weave itself between them. That afternoon, Nathan made a call to a private therapy network. He arranged, through an affiliated nonprofit, to sponsor Lily's treatment, weekly sessions with a trauma specialist, fully covered, no name attached. The next time Carol came home from Hope Haven, her eyes were red but shining. The therapist said they received a grant for Lily, A full scholarship. I don't know who arranged it, but... She trailed off, a look of wonder on her face. He smiled. Sometimes good things find their way to good people. Neither of them said anything more, but they both felt it. The quiet healing that comes not from grand gestures, but from finally being seen. The early morning air inside the Caldwell estate felt heavier than usual, like a storm that never quite came but still left everything damp. Carol moved quietly through the kitchen, preparing Noah's breakfast, her motions practiced and precise. Across the marble island, Nathan watched her, coffee cooling in his hand. He cleared his throat. "Carol, I've been thinking." She looked up briefly. "Yes, Mr. Caldwell." "Beta." Nathan hesitated. "I want to offer you a new position. A full-time household manager. Higher pay, fewer hours. It would give you time for your studies, and to continue your work at Hope Haven." "As in yun, no because so." Carol froze, her hand pausing mid-reach for the toaster. "You've done so much for Noah, for me," he continued gently. "I want to support what you're doing. Social work, the center. You should have space to pursue those dreams without burning out." For a moment, Carol said nothing. Then she placed the bread in the toaster and turned away. "I appreciate the offer. Truly. But I have to decline." Nathan's brow furrowed. "Why?" "Because I need to do this on my own," she replied, keeping her back to him. "If I accept your help, if I become dependent on your generosity, I don't know if I'll ever stop feeling small." "Small?" he echoed, confused. "Like I don't deserve where I am," she said quietly. "Like it's all charity instead of merit." Nathan's heart sank. "Carol, that's not how I see you at all. But it's how I see myself," she whispered. From that day forward, something shifted. Carol remained professional, punctual, polite, but distant. She no longer lingered to read with Noah after his bath. She no longer joined Nathan for casual morning chats or asked about his weekend plans. Her answers were brief, her smiles faint and fleeting. Nathan felt the void like a cold wind through a broken window. He tried to reach her. "How's Lily doing?" he asked one afternoon. "She's improving," Carol said without looking up from the dishes. "And your classes?" "Fine." It was like speaking through glass. He told himself to let it go, to respect her boundaries. But at night, the house echoed louder. Noah missed her stories. Nathan missed her laughter. The spark that had once quietly bloomed between them had been shuttered, and he didn't know how to open the window again. Was it because of him? Because he had too much? Because she felt she had too little? Or was it something deeper? Her fear of needing anyone and his fear of being needed. Weeks passed in the slow, aching rhythm of a goodbye unspoken. Then one Wednesday morning, Carol stepped into his study. "I need to talk to you," she said, clutching a folder to her chest. Nathan rose slowly. "Of course. I'm giving my notice." The words landed like a punch. "I've been accepted into a part-time university program in social work, and Hope Haven needs more of me now that we're expanding services. It's time." "Hey." He swallowed hard. "You're leaving." "I'll stay 2 more weeks to train a replacement," she added quickly, her voice betraying a hint of the emotion she tried to hide. "Noah deserves a smooth transition." Nathan nodded, though his hands trembled slightly. "I see." She hesitated. "I'm grateful for everything, Mr. Caldwell. You've been more generous than I ever expected." He gave a tight smile. "I only ever wanted the best for you." Carol's lips parted as if she wanted to say something more, but she didn't. She turned and walked out, leaving him staring at the empty doorway, the silence now a tangible weight. That night, Nathan sat at his desk long after the house had gone quiet. He pulled out a piece of cream-colored stationery, his handwriting slow and deliberate. "To whom it may concern," he began. It was a letter of recommendation, eloquent, glowing, honest. He spoke of Carol's dedication, her integrity, her profound impact on a grieving child and a broken home. He sealed the envelope and slid it into a second one, addressed to a scholarship committee at a prestigious foundation. Inside, he included a brief unsigned note. Her past should not define her future. She is the kind of person the world needs more of. Help her get there. She deserves every dream she dares to chase. He didn't sign it. 2 days later, Carol received the scholarship award letter in her mailbox at Hope Haven. She stared at it in disbelief, then noticed the enclosed recommendation, her name written in looping, familiar ink. There was no signature, but she knew. She pressed the paper to her chest, eyes closing, heart full and breaking all at once. He was letting her go, respecting her choice, supporting her anyway. And it made her question everything she thought she knew about strength and love, and what it truly meant to be seen. The autumn sun filtered gently through the thinning leaves, casting golden patches of light across the park benches and playground. Nathan spotted Carol near the community garden, her blonde ponytail catching the breeze as she knelt beside Lily, guiding the little girl's hand across a page of a picture book. Other children buzzed around them, laughing, shouting, chasing each other. But Carol remained calm and focused, her soft voice grounding the moment. He approached slowly, unsure if he had the right to disturb her world. She looked up just as he reached the edge of the playground. "Nathan," she said, surprised. "I hope I'm not intruding," he said, hands in his pocket safe. Carol stood, brushing leaves from her jeans. "You're always welcome here. This park belongs to everyone." "Whoa. I needed to see you," Nathan admitted. "To say something I should have said a long time ago." She gestured toward a nearby bench. They sat, a comfortable distance between them. Lily waved goodbye and ran off to join a group near the swings. "I followed you that first night," Nathan said after a beat. "The night you left early with the canvas bag." Carol's shoulders tensed. "I thought you were hiding something," he continued, his voice raw with the memory. "I had all these suspicions. I've seen people take advantage before, people I trusted. I was afraid." "Me?" She didn't look at him, only nodded slowly. "But then I saw you with the children. And it changed me," he said, his voice softer now, filled with a quiet reverence. "You taught me more about kindness in one night than I've learned in 35 years. Carol's eyes shimmered. "I knew you didn't trust me. I felt it. And I hated that I cared." "And I to me so." Nathan turned to her fully, his body angled towards hers. "Why didn't you ever tell me the truth?" "Because I was afraid too," she whispered, her gaze finally meeting his. "Afraid you'd see me as a charity case. A poor girl with a tragic story. I didn't want your pity. I didn't want to be another project." "You never were," he said fiercely, leaning closer. "I grew up being told I wasn't enough," she continued, her voice gaining a quiet strength. "My shoes were too worn. My lunches too simple. My dreams too big. Kids laughed at me. Teachers pitied me. I told myself I'd never let anyone define me by what I lacked." Nathan exhaled slowly. "I know what it's like to build walls." He looked down at his hands, the weight of memories tugging at the edges of his voice. "After my wife died, everything collapsed. I couldn't protect her. I couldn't protect Noah from the grief. I closed up, locked the gates, shut out the world. I thought safety meant solitude." "No. Carol's gaze softened, a deep well of empathy in her eyes. "I watched you bring life back to this house," he said, looking up at her. "You gave Noah his laughter again. You gave me hope. And somewhere along the way, I fell in love with you." "And Cain?" Carol gasped, her hand instinctively covering her mouth, her eyes wide with shock. "But I was too afraid to admit it," he added, his voice thick with emotion. "Because I thought you'd never want someone like me. Broken. Wealthy, yes, but empty, damaged. Neoni. And Peter, Nai, Pagdarn Shakti." A tear slipped down Carol's cheek. "You think I'm not afraid?" she whispered, her voice trembling. You think I haven't fallen in love with you too, and told myself it was impossible? Nathan reached for her hand, hesitated for a fraction of a second, then took it gently, his thumb tracing the delicate bones of her wrist. Then why are we letting fear win? She blinked away tears, a shaky laugh escaping her. Because love like this feels too big, too risky. He squeezed her hand. But it's real, isn't it? Carol nodded slowly, eyes locked on his. Yes, it's real. They sat in silence, hands entwined, the laughter of children ringing around them like music. For the first time, the distance between them wasn't a chasm. It was a bridge. Nathan reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small leather-bound notebook. I've been keeping this, he said, writing down all the things you said to Noah. Your words when he was scared, when he missed his mom, when he doubted himself. No. Carol opened the notebook slowly, her fingers trembling. Inside, in Nathan's neat handwriting, were dozens of quotes. You're stronger than you think. Being kind is the bravest thing you can be. No storm lasts forever. On the final page, one last phrase, stark and alone. You're my inspiration. Nathan. Carol clutched the book to her chest, tears spilling freely. Now, I don't know what the future holds, Nathan said, his voice thick with emotion. But I know this. I don't want to face it without you. Again. Abanton. She leaned into him, resting her head on his shoulder. Me neither. And for the first time in a long time, neither of them felt afraid. The grand ballroom of the Hope Haven Gala shimmered with crystal chandeliers and soft golden light. Tables draped in white linen were surrounded by well-dressed guests, community leaders, generous donors, parents and children, whose lives had been touched by the center hall. At the far end, a raised stage was set for tonight's presentation, a beacon of hope against the backdrop of the city. Carol stood behind the podium, her blonde hair softly framing her face, a vision of quiet strength. She wore a deep blue dress, simple yet elegant, and her eyes scanned the room, filled with familiar faces, parents she had comforted, children she had taught. Her heart thumped in her chest, a nervous but exhilarating rhythm. Good evening, everyone, she began, her voice steady, resonating with a newfound confidence. A hush fell as she continued. I stand here tonight because of Hope Haven, and because of the extraordinary people who believe in its mission. But there's someone here who changed everything for me. She paused, and a faint murmur rippled through the audience, a collective intake of breath. Carol took a breath, her gaze sweeping the room, briefly meeting Nathan's at a table near the front. He asked me to call him someone special, and I want to thank him for helping me believe I deserved to dream bigger. Nathan sat, his heart pounding, a mixture of anticipation and pride swelling in his chest. He saw the way the audience turned to look at him, a silent acknowledgement of his presence. He lifted his hand in a small, almost imperceptible wave, hidden behind his champagne fluten. Carol reached the final line of her heartfelt speech. So, thank you, she said softly, her voice thick with emotion, for reminding me that my past does not define my future. Applause swelled, a wave of genuine warmth and admiration, and she stepped away from the podium, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek. Scanning the room, she saw Nathan rising slowly from his seat, his eyes bright with emotion. Ladies and gentlemen, the gala MC stepped forward, his voice booming. We have one final surprise. Please welcome Mr. Nathan Caldwell to the stage. Nathan crossed the room, his suit jacket barely moving, a man transformed. He stepped onto the stage, the applause growing louder, a crescendo of respect. He cleared his throat, his gaze finding Carol's. His voice, strong and sincere, carried through the room. Good evening. I am humbled to stand here tonight to finally say what I should have said a long time ago. He paused, his eyes unwavering from Carol's. A few months back, I unanimously supported Hope Haven because I believed in its mission. I met a woman, this woman, who embodies everything it stands for. Compassion, resilience, love. Her name is Carol Larson. Carol's hand flew to her mouth, a gasp escaping her lips. The audience leaned forward, captivated. I followed her to this very park, to Hope Haven, to see for myself how she taught and held our children together. I watched her pour her heart into kids who needed more than just help. They needed hope. And I realized I was wrong to doubt her. I was wrong to think her story was anything but beautiful. He paused, his voice thickening with emotion, tears glistening in his own eyes. Carol, I'm sorry for not trusting you sooner. I fell in love with your kindness long before I understood it. I love you, and I want to say that publicly, because you deserve to be seen for who you truly are. No, that's ACL. Silence held the room, a collective breath. Then the audience burst into applause, soft at first, then building into a thunderous standing ovation. Tears glistened in many eyes, Carol's included. Nathan offered his hand to Carol. She stepped forward, her heart pounding, and he took her hand, gently guiding her to stand beside him. And to Nathan's delight, Noah, having slipped away from the children's table, waddled up behind Carol, wrapping his small arms around her waist. "Mommy," he called, loud enough that the crowd fell silent again, a collective gasp going through the room. Carol knelt to embrace him, tears streaming down her face as Nathan wrapped his free arm around both of them. "They are my heart," Nathan said, his voice thick with emotion, his gaze sweeping over the touched faces in the audience. "And they are my family." Soft gasps and more applause filled the room. Carol rose, looking out at the faces, then locked eyes with Nathan, a profound understanding passing between them. "My family," she whispered, the words a sacred vow. Nathan reached behind his back, withdrew a small velvet box, and with a grace that belied his nervous tremor, knelt on one knee on the stage. "Carol Larson," he began, his voice ringing with conviction. Will you make me the happiest man alive? Will you marry me? And will you let Noah and me build a life of trust, love, and purpose with you?" Cheyenne, doll. Silence and then cheers erupted, a joyous explosion of sound. Carol nodded, tears falling freely, her heart overflowing. He opened the box to reveal a delicate ring, engraved with 3 tiny, intertwined names, Carol, Nathan, Noah. He smiled up at her, a single nod, and the audience rose in whoops and applause. Nathan rose, placed the ring on her finger, and they shared a gentle, heartfelt kiss, a promise sealed under the dazzling lights. Cameras flashed. The room soared with joy. Then Nathan cleared his throat, his voice light but full of emotion. "Before we lose the moment," he said, stepping back to the edge of the stage, "I want to announce something." He gestured to Carol, his hand resting on her back. "Starting tonight, I am establishing the Carol Larson Scholarship Fund in honor of Carol's dedication to education and children. This fund will support orphaned and low-income children in pursuing their college dreams. Because everyone deserves hope. And go." The crowd erupted anew in cheers, a roar of approval on. Carol covered her mouth, stunned, tears of gratitude streaming down her face. Nathan stepped forward, sweeping her into a warm hug. He had come to give her everything he could. Love, trust, respect, and now she would carry his name into the future, helping countless others find hope. Noah, still wrapped around her waist, grinned, and the family stood there together, soaking in the love and celebration. The gala closed with laughter, toasts, dancing. But on the stage, under the warm light, Carol and Nathan stood hand in hand, his arms secure around her, hers resting on his heart. They had conquered their fears, built trust across 2 worlds, and now love blossomed fully. It was more than reconciliation. It was rebirth. And tonight, everyone present witnessed it. The sun dipped low over the Pacific, casting golden hues across the waves as they kissed the shore. The breeze was soft, gentle, tugging lightly at Carol's long blonde hair. She walked barefoot along the beach, hand in hand with Nathan, while Noah skipped just ahead of them, his laughter bright and pure against the rhythmic music of the ocean. It had been a month since the gala, and life had shifted, not with the force of a storm, but with the quiet certainty of a tide. Hope Haven continued to thrive, its programs expanding, its reach deepening into the community. Carol had accepted a leadership role, guiding programs for children like she once was, her past now a source of strength, not shame. Nathan had stepped back from the daily corporate affairs, choosing instead to invest in people and purpose, his vast resources now a tool for genuine connection and change. And Noah, he no longer woke crying in the night. His nightmares had been replaced by bedtime stories and morning hugs, his small hand often reaching for Carol's in the quiet hours. As the trio strolled the shoreline, Nathan paused. He turned to Carol, his eyes catching the last fire of the sunset, reflecting the warmth he now carried within. "There's something I want to ask you," he said softly. Carol smiled, amused, a playful glint in her eyes. "Another surprise?" He nodded, then reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Opening it, he revealed a simple, elegant silver ring. It featured a tiny, delicately carved star. "A star," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "For hope," he replied, his thumb tracing the tiny symbol. "For the light you brought into our lives. Carol, will you marry me? Will you be our home?" "Oh." She blinked back tears, laughter catching in her throat. "Yes," she breathed. "Yes, Nathan, 1,000 times. Yes." "No. No." Noah ran back just in time to see Nathan slip the ring onto her finger. "Are we a family now?" he asked, his hopeful eyes searching theirs. Carol knelt and pulled him into her arms, holding him close. "We always were, sweetheart." Nathan joined them, wrapping his arms around both. They stood that way, the three of them, framed by sky and sea, a perfect silhouette against the fading light. Later, Noah drew in the wet sand with a stick. 3 stick figures holding hands under a smiling sun. Above them, in uneven letters he wrote, "My family." Nathan read the words, then turned to Carol, pulling her closer. "I was so afraid once, afraid to trust, to feel. But you, Carol, you were worth the leap." "Daniel, Eotagan." She leaned against him, her head resting on his shoulder, the gentle roar of the waves a lullaby. "So were you."